At 80 years old, Mama Grace lived a quiet life in her small, wooden house at the edge of the village. Her husband, Papa Samuel, had passed away over 10 years ago, leaving behind memories that flickered like old candlelight. Every evening, she would sit by the window, watching the sun dip beneath the horizon, whispering to the breeze as if Samuel could hear her. But one night, everything changed. It started with the wind, a cold draft that slipped through the cracks in the walls. Mama Grace, wrapped in her favorite shawl, felt it brush against her skin. She shivered, even though the night was warm. As she turned to shut the window, something caught her eye. A shadow, tall and familiar, lingered just outside her door. Her heart skipped a beat. She knew that shape. It was Samuel. Frozen in place, she watched as the door creaked open on its own, the hinges groaning under some unseen weight. And there, standing in the doorway, was Papa Samuel, just as she remembered him, strong, gentle, with eyes that held years of love. But something was different about him now. His eyes glowed faintly, like embers beneath ash. "Grace," he whispered, his voice deep and haunting. "I've come back." Tears welled in Mama Grace's eyes. "Samuel, is it really you?" He nodded, stepping closer, his presence filling the room with a coldness that cut through her. She wanted to run to him, to hold him as she had in life, but something about him held her back. His smile, once warm, was now laced with something she couldn't quite name, a hunger, perhaps. For weeks, Samuel returned each night. He would sit by her bed, talking to her in that same deep, comforting voice. But as time passed, something strange began to happen. Mama Grace started feeling different. Her body, once frail and worn with age, seemed to change. Her hands, once bony and weak, felt fuller. Her stomach, which had always been flat and thin, began to swell. It wasn't long before she realized the impossible truth. She was pregnant. Confusion and fear gripped her heart. How could this be? She was 80 years old, long past the age of bearing children, and Samuel was gone. But deep inside, she knew the truth. The child growing within her belonged to him. It was his, even though he was no longer of this world. One night, as the moon hung low in the sky, Samuel appeared again. This time, Mama Grace did not wait for him to speak. "Samuel," she said, her voice trembling, "I'm with child. How is this possible?" He gazed at her with those strange, glowing eyes, a smile playing on his lips. "I told you, Grace. I've come back, not just to see you, but to be with you, truly." Terror and love mixed in her heart, a battle she couldn't win. She had loved him for so many years, but the man standing before her was no longer entirely human. He was a ghost, a shadow of the man she once knew, and yet she carried his child. As the months passed, her belly grew larger, and the whispers in the village grew louder. People wondered how such a thing could be possible, but none dared to ask her directly. They spoke of spirits, curses, and dark magic. But Mama Grace, despite her growing fear, kept her secret close. One stormy night, as thunder cracked through the sky, she felt the first pangs of labor. Alone in her house, she called out to Samuel, her voice trembling with pain. And he came, materializing in the corner of the room, his figure glowing faintly in the flickering candlelight. "I'm here, Grace," he whispered, moving closer. "It's time." As the storm raged outside, Mama Grace gave birth to a baby unlike any other. The child's skin was pale, and its eyes, like Samuel's, glowed faintly, holding secrets far too old for a newborn. As she cradled the baby in her arms, tears streamed down her face, a mix of love, terror, and wonder. Samuel stood beside her, his figure beginning to fade. "Take care of our child, Grace," he said, his voice growing distant. "I cannot stay much longer." With that, he vanished into the night, leaving Mama Grace alone with their ghostly child. The villagers never knew the full story, only that Mama Grace had given birth to a child under mysterious circumstances. Some said it was a blessing, others whispered of curses. But Mama Grace, though afraid of what lay ahead, loved the child with all her heart, for it was a piece of Samuel, her beloved, who had come back to her one last time. And every night, as the wind howled through the village, she would look out the window, waiting for Samuel to visit again. But he never did. Only the moon kept her company now, watching over her and the child with its cold, silent light.